Welcome to J.R. Hendrick Texan Night, the podcast that deals with the early life of yours truly. And now, Can't Live Without an Exhibition Part 2, reading the story for us hereby is Jamie. June 18, 1994, 7:15 a.m. In the reception area, JR gets his tray with cinnamon rolls and sits down with Charlie Nation. Sitting there at the table, you could hear Cousin Joe getting the ire of one of the kitchen staff because he was supposed to be on his way to an intern camp out near Camp David. But it was obvious that he was inebriated and hungover from last night's party. In the Georgetown condo of Mike Verbal. I'll tell you something, Gerald said. I've known him for 6 years, and for the past 4 years, there was always something wrong about him. Just post-prep school wannabe, and I don't know, just something's off. Well, I tell you what's up, Charlie Nation said. I just got through talking to Ricky O'Boyle. She was at the party last night, and when everybody got to the mansion at 2:30 in the morning, Cousin Joe and Kelly Butterfield and Alex Portilla was trying to carry Ricky O'Boyle into one of the male suites. Jared said. You think people would learn? Yeah, thanks for the play-by-play, Charlie, Bill Hume said. That's all we need. I had to clean up Alex's puke from off the floor this morning from him coming in drunk, 3 sheets to the wind. I wondered why you were raising hell this morning, Jared said. You were pretty mad, and I don't blame you. This kid should learn to take responsibility, Alex said. "8 a.m. JR, along with some of the interns, are at the mansion library with the help of mansion librarian Zima Peterson. They are being led through some of the periodicals and databases on a special tour. JR and Charlie Nation took special note, trying hard not to think of the debacle and shame that happened the night before. 9:15 p.m. Finding JR moping in his suite, Emily Cummings took JR to Capitol Hill, where JR heard Republican Florida Congressman Mike Bakersfield speaking about the crime bill. He'd be willing to support it with the withdrawal of 2 provisions: denial of Pell Grants to prisoners and the assault ban. Jim was intrigued by what was going on there. "10:15 a.m. JR just got back and was in his suite listening to some John Gibson tape he got from Wayne Merrill, when his cousin, Elizabeth Marie, stops in the hallway with a tall, pretty brunette stranger. Junior, I want you to meet somebody that your dad and I have agreed to let stay in the mansion. Her name is Hannah Lee Gordon. She's the real estate queen. She's come from Connecticut to lobby for the real estate business. Charlie Nation peeked his head out of the door. His door. Hey, pretty thing. I bet you know President George Bush. Don't you talk to me about George W. Bush, Henley said. She approaches JR and shakes his hand. Mr. Hendrick, your cousin Maria has told me so much about you. I bet she has, JR said. Say, she's talked to your mom and has agreed to rent the limo for the night. What do you say after dinner we go have a ride to Joint Base Andrews and enjoy the evening? Why, I'd like that, JR said. I will see you at 7:50 this evening. Two p.m. JR is walking around in the hallway outside the suite when Alex Portillo opens the Hume suite and stops him. Hey, wait up. Come inside. I want to talk to you. JR walks in. Hey, look. I've been thinking. Could you please go to Ricky O'Boyle and tell her that I am so sorry? Don't you make him apologize for something that's your fault? He didn't leave with some of the rest of you guys, and he didn't decide to go get drunk at some prep school wannabe's house in Georgetown. Bill Hume said, Take responsibility, Alex. He points the finger at JR. And you take responsibility, JR. You never do! Exclamation mark. JR leaves the Hume suite and goes back into his own, closing the door, vowing to go talk to his father. "6 p.m. JR is having walks to the family dining room of the mansion in a bleak mood. His father could tell. Why is your mood so black, son? Jim asked. I spoke to Alex Portillo, JR said. He asked me to approach Ricky O'Boyle and apologize for his behavior. Why don't you do it, Jim said. I want you to apologize for something you hadn't done. No. I warned those kids yesterday afternoon. You weren't there, but that's all right. I warned them what bad behavior would cost them. And now guess what? Kelly Butterfield is expelled. 2 of the guys who went to the party are on thin ice. You don't have to take responsibility for that, JR, Jim said. And I've called Holly Hawthorne. She's agreed to go with me to the dinner and theater at the Kennedy Center. Jim gives a hard slap on the back for his son. Now that's my boy. The rest of the catfish dinner went well, with Blake Carter promising Jim to widen his circle of friends in Washington, D.C. 8 p.m. JR walks outside the mansion with Hanley Gordon, arm in arm towards the white stretch limousine. They step into the limousine and sitting back, pouring each other some lemonade and getting ready for the 35-minute drive, tour, and 35-minute return to and from George Base Andrews. 8:49 p.m. JR and Hanley go on a special tour of Air Force One. Compliments of Hanley's father, Thorpe Walker. Thorpe was a Yale class of 1968 and Yale Law 1970, and knew George W. Bush and Hillary Clinton. This was an interesting time for them. 9:35 p.m. The mansion stops in front of the Hendrick limousine, and JR taps in the key combination to open the door. "Shall I see you again?" Hanley said. "We get through this week, most likely I'll be taking you for lunch one day at the Ritz-Carlton. Here's the phone number. Don't be a stranger. Come see me. We live in the same hall," Hanley Gordon said. Letting Miss Walker in, Jer walks into his suite and goes to bed. Hope you enjoy the J.R. Hendrick Texan Night. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and become a part of the adventure. It's Jimi Hendrix saying until next time, get ready for the rest of the story. I'm telling you guys, it sure does get bumpy from here. Y'all take care. Enjoy this story. Internship is fun times.